Hey guys, it's Tom Box. I seem to be gaining a little weight. Welcome to MST.TV's Purgatory Zone, and today I'm handling your request of how to crush Eldlich. I don't know why you guys want to beat that deck, guys. Like, it's so fun to play if you're me using the deck. So I play tested the deck for some time now. Play tested it in matches just so I can see how people can side against you, how people can try to beat you, whether or not they smart side go second, smart side go first. And yeah, these are some of the findings I have for you today. But to give it a fair assessment, we have to break down some of the strengths, some of the options, and we have to look at the boards that it builds. It doesn't really build a board, it just has a lot of options that it has. And yeah, we'll go into that one right now. So make sure you guys hit that thumbs up button, hit the subscribe, ding notification bell. This is something that I made for you guys. And yeah, completely out of schedule these days. But let's jump into it. So for those of you guys who don't know, Eldlich is Yu-Gi-Oh's next Golden Boy deck, similar to the Golden Girls Sky Strikers. This is a control-based deck, and being a Golden Boy deck, it also comes with a Golden Boy price. It is hella pricey. Just for 3 copies of the Eldlich right now, it's over $110. And you can't even play it in real life events. This is just based off of statistics online from online tournaments, and people are finding it probably one of the most annoying decks available right now, and it will probably crush some of the stuff that is going to be released in the next set of Eternity Code. Looking at you, Orcus. Orcus, I had the easiest time fighting against Orcus ever, and that's with them having Mekk-Knight Gearzu. And yeah, it was pretty silly just because the kit is naturally developed to counter a deck like Orcus, which I find to be quite amusing. As per usual, we're going to go into the strengths and the playstyles of the deck. Now, instead of building a board for you guys to see, we're just going to talk about all the options. So we'll showcase it on the board side. We have hand traps that you can potentially use against the deck, and it seems like we're going to be a bit more focused on grave-centric control. And we have going first sides and going second sides. Going first, there are still some options that you can do. I don't know if it's very optimal because Eldlich is really weird because they're more or less immune to most floodgates. So we'll talk about that as well. So let's start off with the strengths and playstyle. Okay, let's look into their kit right now. And for the Eldlich deck, some basics that we have to know is that they rely on the Golden Lord on the field to actually maximize the potential of all their spells and traps. They have multiple effects sometimes, or even as an activation requirement, you need the Eldlich, the Golden Lord on the field, otherwise they just don't work. So that's a key point of the deck that we have to recognize because that's one of the key weaknesses as well. Into their kit, they have 1 pop in the form of Conquistador. As long as you have a Golden Boy on the field, you get to pop a face-up card. It's non-targeting, it summons out the monster. So in other words, it gives you additional options as it pushes your opponent back. Next, we have 2 Omni Negate counter traps. And for these new negate counter traps, we have Solemn Judgment, we have Golden Land Forever, both of which can negate spells and trap activations. One negates the summon, of course, that's Solemn Judgment, and the other negates monster effects. And all it requires is that you have to have the Golden Lord on the field, and the cost to it is that you have to banish a zombie monster. It doesn't even have to banish the Golden Lord. So in other words, as long as you can keep pumping out those trap zombie monsters on the field, or even summon an Ash Blossom Joyous Spring, just so that you can keep the Golden Lord on the field, that's what they'll probably do. And if they keep 2 monsters on the field, it's a good to go for them. Their back row is rather safe, and they're always in control. And naturally, the deck runs floodgates because it does not require very many summons. It's not reliant on the extra deck, so they can use a summon limit, which really cripples a lot of the combo-based strategies. You can't even go into a Phoenix if you go into a summon limit. And they have skill drain. Again, they're just turning off monster effects. They're naturally big, so they can definitely play the beats of the game, and they'll still have their control because, like a Paleo deck, they'll just be able to use the back row to control you. Except that they're big, very big. They also have a Grave Banish that they have access to in the form of Hakero and Hakero, Conquistador, and Golden Land Forever. All of these cards are searchable, so it's like a mash of some of the best archetypes all together. And talking about searching here, they have a searcher card in the continuous spell of Curse of the Outland that lets them search their Lord into their hand or a Golden Land spell and trap. I believe that's what they have access to. And if this card gets sent to the graveyard, they get to send to the grave those types of cards into the graveyard. And remember, they have graveyard-based effects. They actually can start cycling. The elixirs themselves cycle into the Golden Land cards, and the Golden Land cards, except for Golden Land Forever, cycles into the elixir card. And there's also an elixir trap. And speaking of the elixir trap, that's going to be one of their summoning methods. 2 of the elixirs are able to summon out the Golden Lord straight out of the deck. And because they can summon straight out of the deck, they'll always have access to it, and they run 3 copies of the Red Splatter and 3 copies of the Black Elixir. That's going to give them a lot of ways to summon the card out and to keep the traps live. And luckily, most of these Elixir cards do not rely on the Golden Lord to be on the field, so it's just they have more or less 12 cards, including the card itself, to summon itself out. And the Golden Lord itself can summon itself out from the graveyard by activating, sending one of their spell and traps that you control to the graveyard, and then it just goes back to hand and then summons itself back onto the field, or summon any other zombie back onto the field, and gains 1,000 attack and defense, also being indestructible to card effects. So that's pretty good, I would say, and since it's so fat and big, it's hard to run over, making the back row fully live. And also on top of that, if you are able to summon out 2 of them, then during your turn you can go ahead and overlay into a Gustav Max, burn them for 2k, and attack them with a Libe for game. So that's an OTK strategy that's in their pocket. It's kind of like Sky Striker having a, I guess, Utopia double strategy that's kind of secretly teched in there, and they have Destruction Protection. Yeah, so overall, this kit is very, very flexible. Now, in terms of their playstyle, they are a control-based deck that do not rely on the extra deck, making most combo-based, anti-combo-based strategies pretty useless. They have a diverse interaction kit, and it's rather big, can disrupt most decks with consistent results, which is one of the best things. They have counter trap access, and they also run floodgates. And because they have that combination, it makes it very difficult for anyone to actually play out of them, and the card cycles smoothly into the next play, so they're exceptional at grinding and recovering, and that's what makes them so scary. And if you compare, again, it's a very common comparison with Sky Striker. It's just that they're Sky Striker but don't rely on the extra deck. They're bigger, they pop cards, and they're more self-reliant and much more consistent. Sky Strikers don't have Engage anymore, but it seems like these guys have their own form of Engage, which constantly resets stuff back onto the field. Into the hand traps. All right, the juicy bits. We have the Artifact Lancia. This one actually cost me a match. I actually lost to it because I got hit by it games 2 and 3. And it was rather painful. I chose to go first. I tried to set up my interaction. I put everything in the graveyard, expecting to be able to reset some stuff. I Foolish Burial the Golden Boy into the grave, and then I got hit by a Lancia, and I was like, okay, well, that's fine. I just didn't get my ability to search with my traps and spells, and overall my turn ended rather weak because I don't have the back row set up. The counter to that is that if you already have most of these cards in your hand, like all the spells and traps, you just activate them all and then you just set up and you just pass turn. Then that's fine. Artifact Lancia won't do very much against you at that point. But Lancia is still one of the crushing factors that you don't get to set up your board. Your back row is weak, and the reason why this deck is so strong is you're able to set up such strong back row. Next is Ash Blossom Joyous Spring. A well-timed Ash is still very painful. You're hitting the Black Elixir, for instance, because they want to get that free setup. But Ash isn't the end-all hand trap for you. It doesn't really work out that way because they have so many other ways to set up the board. Even if you hit their Black Elixir, if they already have the red splatter, they can just still set 3 cards and still play through your board. They can still put them on monster defense mode. They still have the counter trap, and you already traded 1-for-1 with them. So the game state isn't as complex and you don't have as much resources. But Ash Blossom is still a very much welcome sight because you can stop red splatter from activating. You can stop Elixir. You can stop Eldland. There's just a lot of things you can use. The only bad thing is if they already have all these things that they were going to search anyway. Then there's DD Crow. DD Crow, I think the key point is you can remove the Eldlich, the Golden Lord. Naturally, the deck does not have a lot of monsters. Most people run 3 monsters, 6 monsters including the hand traps, and that's what they go for. They don't play a full zombie package. There are alternative builds where the DD Crow might not be as useful, or maybe even just as useful to take care of the side engine, perhaps the invoke stuff. But otherwise, you can definitely use DD Crow to kind of remove some of the traps as well, because the traps of the Golden Land, they activate during the end phase, so you can probably crow them out before they even get a chance to activate. That I can find to be very useful as well, just especially when you know what you're doing, you know the tempo, you know the options available, then your opponent, you're just cutting them off before they get a chance to recover. Dimension Shifter should be a given because no graveyard access means everything gets banished, which takes away their ability to recycle their graveyard, and you can also take away their graveyard setups. It's pretty good, but again, they can still defend with like red splatter and just try to hold the board. Remember, under D Shifter, I think dinosaurs would be probably one. Dinosaurs and I guess red Maju decks would be the ones that would thrive under that condition. But aside from those decks, you would probably skip your own turn otherwise. Then there's also Skullmeister. Again, we're all focused on this graveyard hate right now. Skullmeister can negate the Eldlich from adding itself and summoning itself back onto the field, and you can now basically end any of the end phase threats because those end phase cards, they do not create a chain. They don't stack on top of each other. They activate one at a time, so you can choose the one that you want to negate with Skullmeister, and that could potentially take out some of the potential threats that might be coming your way. Because if you give your opponent like a Conquistador onto the field, it doesn't really hurt, especially when they don't have the Golden Lord. If you can block the Golden Lord in every single play possible, you're in good shape. And for going first, let's just run down all the cards first. We have Super Poly, Call by the Grave. For me, Royal Decree was one thing that should have killed me, but didn't, because they didn't end phase activate it. They preempted it. Don't preempt stuff against Golden Lords. There is also There Can Be Only One. That one murdered me pretty badly. And Prohibition was surprisingly effective against me because I only run really just one monster, but of course it doesn't work against invoked versions because invoked versions can definitely pop the card off or just rely on the invoke side to play. Anyways, Super Poly is really useful, especially when you try to put up 2 zombie monsters on the field. It does occur every now and then, and yeah, you'll just get yourself completely super polyed out because they can go into Draco, Necro, Nether Soul Dragon, and you have an open board. And without the Eldlich, it's a bit of a sitting duck at that point. And so that part really hurt. And you can't even really pop it naturally with a Conquistador because it's face down most of the time, and you're just gonna get eat. A Super Poly, your counter traps don't work, and that did break my board once. I died, and I did lose the game to it. So yeah, I didn't think it was going to be that effective, but apparently it was. And Call by the Grave, this is like an insurance card against me, especially when you go first, because you want to set this card up so that you can negate the Eldlich that's going to be getting rid of perhaps a floodgate that you're trying to protect. And when they use the Eldlich, send to the graveyard, Call by the Grave, and now you disrupt their setup. So their game plan slowed down while your game plan is still up, and that will buy you perhaps 1 turn. And if you can get that 1 turn in, perhaps you don't have to deal with some of the traps that they have set up. And since they are so focused on traps, you can just expect maybe they'll get lucky, maybe they'll have a floodgate to counter you on your current play to slow you down, because it's all about disrupting each other's game plans. And that's why Call by the Grave is still pretty nice. You got rid of 1 copy of their Eldlich, which it means if you banish 1 more copy, you don't have to worry about their extra deck anymore for most cases. Then there's Royal Decree. Turning off all the traps was pretty painful. I almost died to this, almost, except my opponent was foolish enough to preempt the card. I don't know why you would preempt the card. Unless you have like Call by the Grave, I wouldn't preempt this card at all, just because what if I sided in Twin Twisters, or what if I sided in Lightning Storms? Just don't preempt the card. You want me to put a monster onto the field before you drop like a Royal Decree. If you end phase Decree while the monsters are still up, Lightning Storms aren't going to be live, and none of the back row will be able to activate. You can ignore all the impermanents. You can ignore the Golden Land Forever, Solemn Judgment, Conquistador, everything's turned off. They don't summon. Even if you activate it, it just stays in the back row. They just sit there. They're not very good. I know that there's also a true Draco build that also can perhaps get rid of this card. Remember, this is kind of more focused on the single variant, but on the same note of just not letting someone use their graveyard, you can also use cards like Abyss Dweller. Abyss Dweller is actually a card that I would actually recommend going first. I completely forgot to put it on this list, but Abyss Dweller turns off all the spells and traps in the graveyard, turns off all the true Draco variant, and even somehow turns off some of the, I guess, a part of the invoke side as well. So Abyss Dweller probably should be number 1, and I'm probably just gonna leave the image up there. And yeah, There Can Be Only One's pretty good because being a zombie only deck, it's pretty powerful. Of course, There Can Be Only One and also Prohibition. If you're playing a pure build of Eldlich, these cards will punish you pretty hard. There Can Be Only One crushed me. I summoned out my Eldlich and I got blocked out. I couldn't special summon because they chained There Can Be Only One when I tried to do the card popping. The monster could not summon out, couldn't pop. I got locked. I got locked really badly. But again, this isn't something that you should preempt. Golden Lord in hand is always a scary threat that can just remove your card because it's not even summoning. It's just pay. It's like a blaster. It's like a Draco blaster right there. It's pretty scary. And yeah, Dragon Ruler. That's what I was trying to go with. Dragon Ruler Blaster. And there's Prohibition. I call the Eldlich. All the traps are pretty useless. I was kind of trying to rush into a Pleiades. This was someone using it against me game 1, which was very unconventional. But in other words, it still worked because they still took the game off of me. I couldn't really get out of it fast enough anyway. I was trying to dig for like impermanence. I was trying to dig for 2 traps, and I have to take the hits because I need to keep the traps alive, and then go into Pleiades to bounce it back. But by that time, he already set up another counter to negate Pleiades, and it was just one-sided from there because I cannot use Eldlich. Eldlich, even though I had a copy in my hand, I couldn't send the prohibition to the graveyard. So yeah, these are the kind of game plans. Try to use Abyss Dweller. For going second, okay, so the Eldlich players set up their entire board. They leave usually an Eldlich on the field because they don't want to get hit by stuff like Lightning Storm or Evenly Matched. So they'll try to keep something on the field, particularly for Lightning Storm, because losing all your back row all at once is an opportunity for an OTK, and that's why they'll always try to leave it on the field. In that regard, you can always use a Kaiju to get rid of that monster, unless they have another copy of the Eldlich, which is the red splatter elixir, to summon another copy out. You can try to disrupt it as much as possible within that small time frame because you have a bit of an opening. They won't have counter traps, or perhaps even if they do, they have to pay 4,000. Then that's okay. If you Kaiju them first, then you can Lightning Storm them. Since Kaiju summons it onto their side of the field, your side is still empty, so you can still Lightning Storm their back row, and it has occurred to me before. Now, Lightning Storm, one of the bad things is that you don't have a proper follow-up. You set it all up, you put all the stuff in the graveyard, and then you have nothing, so then all the stuff in the graveyard procs, and you're screwed, because now they have a full recovery. But this is mainly to open an opportunity for you to do your combo and push and gain control. Lightning Storm and Evenly Match. This is useful after clearing the Eldlich or baiting out some cards. Just fully clear the back row, I would say. And I think Evenly Match is slightly better because it banishes the card face down, so they don't regain their resources. However, they have counters to it naturally through Golden Land Forever and Solemn Judgment, so play as you will. Twin Twister, Cosmic Cyclone. When they activate their trap monsters, you can just go ahead and remove them before it becomes an issue. But if they have counter traps to prevent that, then you're gonna probably take a heavy loss at that point. If you're gonna go into something to stun them out completely during the battle phase anyways, you're gonna anti-magic arrows at the beginning of the battle phase. This card's not respondable, so there's no real counter to this, and till the end of the turn, nothing can activate, no spells and trap or their effects can activate. So it's a bit of a free reign. None of the things in the graveyard will activate anymore, which completely stuns out their turn just stuns out their turn completely, and that's what they're gonna have to live with. Another option is Denko Sekka. They have to use Solemn Judgment or attack over it, but if you're summoning Denko Sekka, you can expect that they're going to use Solemn Judgment. They can't chain impermanence, they can't chain any of their trap cards because it's a continuous effect that blocks them out, and you can combo under your own Denko, and if you can just special summon like 2 dragons along the way, you could secure an OTK from there. Or you can also use Red Reboot, but Red Reboot has a problem because it can get Solemn Judgmented also. Yeah, that part's a bit rough, and they can even use Golden Land Forever for that, and you'll be paying yourself like 4,000 life points for it. Depends if it works for you. If it works for you, if it doesn't, that's too bad. But yeah, that's the kind of the rundown. You don't want to stun out back row. It seems like to be the key point of this whole shenanigan. I get that there's a lot of other options you guys can definitely try out. Leave it down in the comment section below about how you are tackling against Eldlich. And that's all I got for this video, guys. If you guys enjoyed this video, enjoyed exploring the options, some of the timing, hit that thumbs up button. If you guys want to see more stuff from MST.TV, hit the subscribe, ding notification bell. And oh boy, full set analysis coming for Eternity Code. So stick around, guys. And that's all I got. So I'll see you guys in the next one.